Oregon State looking for its first win in several weeks as the high-octane air raid offense of Washington State comes to town. A huge test for the secondary. Tonight, Nigel goes one-on-one with one of the brightest stars of the unit, Devin Chappelle. And Victor Bolden has been racking up the rushing yards this season. Should the Beavers be utilizing him even more? Hashtag Beavers football starts now. Well, a week after facing a top 5 Washington team, Oregon State readying itself to face an undefeated in Pac-12 Washington State. A lot on the line for both teams. We are coming to you live from Blitzlad in Southeast Portland. Welcome to Hashtag Beavers football. Amanda Maynard alongside Nigel Burton, our regular guest, and Lindsay Schnell making a special appearance.
Thanks
for coming in here
so
tonight.
Important, you guys.
Right. We all kind of matched too.
I know. I was just thinking that actually.
Down with the black here tonight. So let's talk about the magnitude of this game for both Washington State. Obviously, they want to keep, piling it on in the Pac-12 North. But Oregon State, I mean, they're trying to be bowl eligible, which of course is a little bit of a stretch. But how big of a game is this for them?
Well, I think that for Washington State, it's a huge game, certainly. They're trying to prove right now that they are at least the second best, if not the best team in the Pac-12. I think the Apple Cup's going to matter a lot this year, which is strange. We haven't heard that in a while. But with Oregon State, I think it matters that every game matters for confidence for them. Right, Nigel? I mean, the more wins that they can build with this young group, the better for the future. I'm not focused on bowl eligibility. I don't think anyone is.
Well, I don't know. I mean, obviously this game would be huge for bowl eligibility because you go from needing 4 wins to needing 3. If you beat Washington State, you're talking about the number 1 team right now, or tied for number 1 in the Pac-12 North, and the next teams, next group of teams that you play, Stanford, Arizona. Let's see, Stanford, Arizona, help me out here, Oregon, and UCLA.
Yes, UCLA.
They've beaten 3 out of 4 of them. So if you beat them, then you feel like, yeah, you have a chance. I think the other thing is, in order to win this game Saturday, you have to get great quarterback play, which means you finally have found a quarterback that can give you great quarterback play, because you're not going to win this game just running it down their throats like you did against Cal.
So from the Bear Raid offense in Cal to the Air Raid offense this week, Gary Anderson was asked to talk about some of the similarities and differences between Cal and Washington State's offense.
There's both. There's similarities and there's some major differences. But the bottom line is that they want to be an effective offense, and they have the ability to run the ball or throw the ball, and I think they have 2 very, very talented play callers on both sides within a very established offense, and they know what they want to do, how they want to do it, and they have good players to be able to give them an opportunity to do those things. And it starts with the quarterback. Proven quarterbacks. Luke is a very, very good quarterback, has been for a long period of time, and that's what you need. If you don't have a quarterback in that offense, then it makes it hard, like any offense. But their ability to run the ball, be physical, is very, very impressive. So you have to pick your spots and understand, yes, they're going to get some yards. Yes, they're going to move the ball. You've got to get out of drives, and you've got to find a way to get to third down and execute and get them in a position to be uncomfortable on third down. And again, I go back to ultimately making the quarterback uncomfortable, I think, is the key when you play teams like this. And that's through coverage, that's through pressure, what have you.
So, of course, Mike Leach's air raid offense gets all of the love. Top 3 in points in the Pac-12 in first downs, number of plays, and third down conversions. Those are the things that Mike Leach say matter to him when it comes to offense. But time of possession, they've been doing pretty well there. He said he doesn't really care about that.
No one cares about time of possession anymore, except Nick Saban in Alabama.
When we look about the similarities between Sonny Dykes, what he's doing at Cal, and what Mike Leach is doing at Washington State. Obviously, he coached under him at Texas Tech for a number of years. What is similar? What is different between these 2 offenses?
Well, I mean,
Washington State runs the ball.
No, Cal runs the ball more than Washington State does. Cal's averaging about 170 yards rushing, whereas Washington State is averaging about 112. Now, obviously, the fact they ran for 317 against the Beavers is a big part of that. But what Sonny did was he took Mike's offense and he did add some more variations to it. Similar to, when he was at Louisiana Tech, what you saw was not just the air raid, but they also tried to kill you with personnel. You saw a ton of different formations. There were tight ends on the field, things that you don't see in Mike Leach's offense. So he hasn't exactly gotten to that at Cal, but there is a little bit more variation. They do want to run the ball more. And so there are some slight variations, I think, in the way that they attack. I think Sonny's scheme is a lot more vertical passing game than Mike's is a little bit more horizontal, which means you're seeing more crossing routes. You're seeing a little bit more dink and dunk. You're seeing guys sit in between zones and linebackers, whereas Cal doesn't mind going for those home runs a lot more often. It's
interesting to hear you say, that Leach doesn't have the as wide a personnel set, because when I look at these teams, one thing that stands out to me is with Cal, if you shut down Chad Hansen, which the Beavers managed to do, and now he's been hurt for a while, which sucks for him, they're not nearly as threatening, whereas Washington State has 3 receivers in Gabe Marks, River Craycraft, and I'm forgetting the other one's name, who all average over 58 receiving yards a game. They have big play guys that can hurt you. We think of what?
Tavares Martin.
Yes, thank you.
There you go.
We think of Cal and we think of Chad Hansen. So I think that the Beavers' success against Cal helps them, that they have confidence they can shut that down.
Yeah, I think the difference between, though, that statistical anomaly is just simply based on the fact that you had 3 of Cal's top receivers from last season are all gone. So as opposed to trying to do it by committee again, it really all fell on Chad Hansen's, until really they have a freshman wide receiver who is an immense talent at Cal. And, of course, now I can't remember names. Roberson, I think is his last name. Anyway, he's from South Carolina, he's from Savannah, Georgia, and was a big-time recruit, turned down a ton of SEC schools to go out to Cal. And until he kind of comes along a little bit more, it kind of fell all on Chad Hansen.
All right, still ahead, a closer look at one of the brightest stars in the secondary, Devin Chappelle.
If this is my last year, I got to make sure I go all out. And I don't plan on it being my last year playing football, but, if it is, I'm going to go all out. And like I said, mama got to eat, got to take care of her somehow.
And he is certainly going to have his hands full as one of the best offenses in the country comes to town. A closer look at the Cougars coming up next. Back here on #Beavers Football, and take a look at this tweet, looking at the stretch of quarterbacks that Oregon State has faced. Luke Falk leading the nation in completion rate. Washington's Jake Browning leading Power 5 with quarterback rating. And Cal's Davis Webb leading Power 5 in touchdown passes. The Cougars telling us just what makes their quarterback unique.
Trying to buy a little more time. Finds his man. Touchdown, Morrow.
He's pretty much every cliche you could think about having a great quarterback. He's the first guy in, the last guy out. He does everything on and off the field the right way to lead the young guys and the older guys and make sure everybody's ready to go.
He will throw. End zone. Open. Marks. Feeling just fine.
He's been the difference in the program. When it hits the fan, he's got that Tom Brady killer instinct, you know what I mean? He'll drive you down the field with calm, doesn't flinch. You drop a ball, he won't flinch. He doesn't need to look. He's just like, next play.
Falk taking a shot here and makes a play.
I think guys have a lot of trust in him. Part of it is because he's a very steady guy, which I think is one of the most important qualities of a leader. The most important thing a quarterback does is elevate the play of the players around him, and I think Luke does a great job of that.
And we have a tweet from one of our viewers, Jake the Tailgater. He says, Washington State's passing game is strong. What will Oregon State need to do differently to contain them? Remember to send us your questions just using the Twitter hashtag Beavers Football.
As it turns out, we have a defensive coordinator with us.
More importantly, so Jake the Tailgater comes on our radio show on Rip City Radio.
Right? Nigel's #1 fan.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And Jake made this morning, he made some unbelievable chicken wings, like 4 different kinds, dipping sauces, even brought in some beer.
Jake, where's our food?
You give
Come
that
on
to
now.
Washington State, guaranteed Beavers win. That's what he did. That's how they
The
win.
chicken wings,
Just make
slow
the
them
chicken
down.
wings and beer
Is he
for
the one
Washington
that brings
State.
you all the good food,
I'm
right?
telling you.
Jake, come
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
Come down to Blitz Lad and for us some drinks,
So he answered his own question there. That's how you do it. The way that you can mess with their offense, at least, is you try to create indecision between the quarterbacks and wide receivers. They really don't have a lot of plays. What they do is they'll go into games with anywhere between 6 to 12 plays, and they will practice versus every defense you run, every blitz, every imaginable, every front, every coverage. And so that way what happens is no matter what you do, you're wrong. They will find ways to find that hole based on whatever play they've called. And so if you can do something defensively that looks like one thing, but it's really something else, and sometimes pre-snap reads don't really work. I mean, they do, but they don't. What it really is, and so something we did was it's like a soft cover 2. It's not rolled up corners, guys. It's a little variation, and because of the indecision that it creates, it causes problems for this offense. So that's kind of the way that you can attack them.
So with an air raid, we've talked so much about this conference in general. There's so much scoring, right? And like it used to be that the Ducks were really hard to prepare for because no one else ran that. The air raid now, we see that more and more around college football, certainly in this conference, and then it's everywhere in the Big 12. How much does your personnel have to change when you play an air raid team? Like, are you playing a lot of kids do you have to run in a lot more kids from the secondary that you're not usually playing? Like,
it depends. It depends on what your strength is. I mean, I've gone against, Mike Leach, and we gave them a heck of a ball game when I was at the University of Nevada, gave Graham Harrell the worst game of his career. And we did a lot of that with just our base defense. We didn't, we had some linebackers who were really savvy. They were really good in the pass game. They were fast. They could operate in space. I then tried to do the same thing at Portland State, and we got shelled. Then the very next year, they did it with really the same thing. Stayed a lot of base, brought in a little bit of nickel with Portland State, and that's the year they beat them and held them to one of their lowest, worst games of the season. So it's more based on who you have that can operate in space, knows what they're doing more than anything.
Lindsay, you spent a lot of time writing about Luke Falk earlier this year. I think, did you label him a dark horse Heisman contender?
At the beginning of the season, I think he absolutely was. What? And then they played terrible the first couple weeks.
When you look at the stretch of quarterbacks that they played, again, Jake Browning, Davis Webb, what makes him a little different?
Well, I think that Luke Falk, he's really tough, mentally, physically. Like, he gets hit sometimes, and he spent a lot of time on the ground this year in different games, and he always gets back up. He can complete throws. He's very accurate. It's interesting because there was actually a story this week on Monday Morning Quarterback about that NFL scouts are really intrigued by him. We haven't really seen an air raid quarterback transfer well yet to the league, but people wonder if maybe he'll be the one to break this mold.
I'm so interested by his story, too. Again, if you read your story, he likes essential oils, loves Tom Brady.
It was the ultimate
worked in catering.
On.
Yeah, pretty cool story.
Have you seen Tom Brady's hair lately? It's essential oil.
Right? Essential oils. Just look through it. That avocado, that alkaline diet. Focusing a little bit on their receiving core, how does this core stack up to some of the other receivers that we've seen so far this season? Particularly Gabe Marks, because he's the one. Well, his mouth gets him a lot of publicity,
Gabe Marks
too.
gets a lot of attention because he's a good quote. But I think that he's one of the best receivers in the country. I think that he's one of the most underrated receivers in the country. I'm pretty sure that he was a finalist or a semifinalist for the Biletnikoff last year, and he has big playability all the time.
Yeah, he's a solid player. He's not going to be a guy who's going to be a first-round draft pick in the NFL, but they have one on their team. It's just not him. Tavares Martin could be that guy. I mean, he is a big, strong, fast, physical guy who can also catch the ball and contested catches, and he's a deep threat. Gabe is kind of the jack of all trades and really the master of all of them. You got River Craycraft is a guy who has unbelievable hands, understands how to work the underneath with Kyle Sweet. So the thing that makes them special isn't necessarily one guy, it's how many guys and how they fit together. They create one of the best group of receivers, in my opinion, in the Pac-12.
When you were talking earlier about the kid from Cal that went to the kid from Georgia that went to Cal, talking with Luke Falk this fall, he was saying, why wouldn't you want to come play in this offense? If you're a quarterback or you're a receiver, all we do is throw the ball all day long.
Gotta be fun.
Those receivers love it. They always know they have so many options, and all of them have a chance to go for at least 100 yards a game.
But this run game is actually has steadily increased under Mike Leach. If you take a look at some of these numbers, I mean, again, they're averaging 112 yards a game here. How much has an improved run game factored into this season's success?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say that if you would have asked Leach the last few years that he's been at Washington State, he would tell you that they did run the ball. It was just disguised in a bunch of short checkdowns. Like, to him, that's running the ball. This year, they actually are handing it off more. I'm not sure if it's because they have a better offensive line, if Leach finally realized that he has to run the ball some. After one of their wins this year, he was talking with the Pac-12 networks, and he said, one of these days, we're going to pass every single play, and we're going to run every single play the next game. I want to see it. I believe that Leach would do that.
Yeah, I mean, what's funny is you look at that statistic, and they've gotten better in terms of winning football games. If you go back to when he was at Texas Tech, 2007, they averaged 59 yards rushing. They go 9-4. They're a really good football team. 2008, I played against them in 2008 against at the University of Nevada. They go 11-2. They average 120 yards rushing on that season with that football team. Go 11-2. At one point, we're number 2 in the country. The very next year, similar personnel, they go 9-4. averaging 85 yards. The more they run the football, the more successful they are. And no, dinking and dunking isn't the same thing, at least not defensively. They're more successful. So.
Because you have to play both, right? As a defense, like that's the thing. Like if they're just going to throw the ball every single time, you know exactly how to defend that.
Well, and your D-line knows what to do. They know to pass rush. When you do a little bit of both and you keep them honest, you can't just put your best pass rushers who are 220 pounds onto the field, because next thing you know, you get those big offensive linemen leaning on them, moving them out of the way, and guys are gutting you for 20 yards or a carry.
All right, still to come. We're checking in Corvallis. Mike Parker joining us. He's going to give us his take on how to stop the air raid offense. And Connor Blount is on the mend. Will Marcus McMaryion be looking over his shoulder when he is fully healthy?
Victor Bolden getting some run. And Victor Bolden's going to go. There's the first Oregon State touchdown. On the fly sweep, Victor Bolden turned the corner and then showed his stuff.
That was our Flat Tail Brewing damn good moment for the week. But of course, this next tweet could be as well. The annual pumpkin carving competition between the QBs, wide receivers. Always a fun night. Victor Bolden and Mason Moran with the win there. I can't really tell what they carved.
I just want to say that
great.
It's Brent Brennan's family is really into Halloween.
Yeah.
They usually do family costumes. Like they were the Power Rangers one year. They've been different superheroes.
So all themed.
But now
family.
the kids are older, but this is the one tradition they still have. They've been doing a pumpkin carving contest with their receivers for years.
Love that. Very cool. You
If
carve
you were
pumpkins?
curious.
No? You don't look
Yeah.
very into Halloween, are you? Okay. That face, too serious.
What's that mean? Look, I got two little ones. We did.
What are they going to be for Halloween?
Let's see. My son is from the Avengers, dude with the arrows. Why am I spacing? Hawkeye.
Okay.
He's Hawkeye, and then my daughter is Supergirl.
Ooh.
So she's got like the little boot covers, the whole deal.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Will you be dressing up?
I will not. The last time I dressed up, I think we were in Reno, and my wife, she dressed up as Coach. And so, like, had my whistle, had my play cards, tucked in her pants, had the polo,
Yelling at the
officials. And I was the stay-at-home mom. So I had like the sweats with like all the, the Starbucks cups, little baby throw up on my shoulder.
Oh, good work. Your attention to detail here. Very much attention to detail. Taking a closer look at Victor Bolden, particularly those rushing yards the last 4 games. Big game at Washington, 75 yards for him. How do you feel like they could utilize him even more in this offense?
Well, the 75 yards, wasn't that one play on
Yes.
the fly sweep?
Yeah.
Okay, so that can be a little deceiving. Look, he's really good in the fly sweep. He has been since he got to Oregon State when he was recruited under Riley. But that's not a play that you typically run like a lot during a game. That's more of a you've lulled the defense to sleep a little bit and then you catch him off guard. He's really good at it, but they're not going to be. I don't think they should be like handing the ball off to him more.
And if there's ever a week not to do it, this is the week not to do it. I worked with Ken Wilson, their linebackers coach, and UNLV would run this play a lot against us when we were at Nevada. We did what we called a jet call. So what you do, as you see the fly sweep coming, you yell jet, jet, jet. The end to that call will widen out and literally just race up the field. You can't touch him. I felt bad what we did to that young man. And so I would worry about doing that too much. That's got to be one of those change-up kind of things. You run the fly sweep, but you do it with, you hand the inside zone, you hand the inside zone, you hand the inside zone, and maybe the 4th time you hand the sweep off, just to keep them honest. And then when they start looking at the sweep, you go back to the inside zone. You start giving that thing too much, you're going to get them hurt.
All right, we're taking a look at the quarterback position in our Twitter poll question. We're asking you, how would you grade Marcus McMaryion's performance? Here are the results. Not too bad. 33% with a B, 32 a C, a little bit of an A there, 30% D. How would you grade?
That's all James Dockery right there, the A, in his orange-colored glasses.
How would you grade his performance?
Well, I actually voted in this poll. I just want everyone to know I gave him a B. I said this Wednesday on Talkin' Beavers that I thought he was like a B-. And, McMaryion said this week at practice that he thought when he went back and watched the film, he had a little bit better appreciation for what he did against how good that defense was. Nigel, I know he threw 2 picks, but one of them was like a crazy good interception by UW.
I know, and I remember you said that, and I was like, look, that's the Pac-12. You get the best athletes in the country or in this conference. You have to get used to that. And, I agreed with you at first that a B- I thought was okay. The more I watched the film, I'll be honest with you, I was thinking more C, C-. I mean,
Really?
you've got to get better production out of your quarterback at the Pac-12 level. You can't throw under 50%. You can't throw no touchdowns and also have 2 interceptions. That's just not good enough in this conference. Now, it's still a passing grade, but you're going to have to go to night school or something like that because it's not good.
He could probably use extra reps.
Yeah, but I will say the thing that was intriguing to me and the thing that I hope I continue to see is he did improve. He threw for more yards than anybody since the Minnesota game, which is insane to say because he threw for 148. And I saw Jordan Villeman actually show up to a game. Like, he didn't just put his, pads on and then stand around and do nothing. So, the fact that he became part of the passing game again, if they could have a 3-headed monster with him, Seth, and Victor, that would then open things up, and you would see, exponentially, not just for their passing game, but also their running game.
I think that you're grading him a little harsh. I mean, that's like the best defense, one of the best defenses in the country and at Husky Stadium. I think he'll be better this week. He said it was going to be a lot of get back to basics. He went through. He just needs to get to his second and third progressions, not get so jittery.
Connor grading on a curve. I mean, it is what it is. You can get better. Get better. Sure. Yeah.
Connor Blount is probable for this game. I believe Mason Moran's still the backup. But when he comes back, what is the dynamic, I guess, in that quarterback room?
I don't think that there's any sort of like quarterback controversy going on here. It's not like with Garrettson where he was the starter. Like, the bottom line is that both these guys need to prove themselves to the coaching staff. I don't think it's going to be if one beats out the other one's transferring, even though we have a transfer epidemic right now amongst college quarterbacks in Division I. But I think that, McMarion, I want to believe that he can throw. I want to believe he can pass the ball. Connor did some really good things when he came into the game totally unexpectedly against Boise State. But again, I think part of that is because no one had heard anything about him and knew anything about him. So I don't think there will be any sort of controversy. And I don't think that because Blount is beat up right now, I don't think you pull McMarion unless he's playing horrible. He's going to have to play through mistakes. That's just the bottom line. Because if Blount's not 100%, I don't think you want to put him in.
Yeah, he's going to have the same rope that Daryl Garrettson had. He has a bad half, he's going to be out. If he plays well, then they'll try to keep him. Him going. So I think it'll be pretty similar to what we've seen throughout the season.
You sat down with him this week. I mean, he seems a lot more confident there.
Oh, yeah.
So hopefully, again, that shows on the field. A little later in the show, Devin Chappelle is having a solid season. Nigel's going to sit down with him to learn a little bit more about his road to Corvallis. But first, Mike Parker sizing up the defense. What do you think the key is to stopping that Cougs offense? Now, a special weekend for Oregon State. They are going to honor the Rose Bowl team that played in 1942. Our Mike Parker has more on that and a look at how this defense, what they need to do to defend the air raid.
Well, thank you, Amanda. And I suppose it's appropriate with the Men of Roses being honored at Reser Stadium that there is, again, another war metaphor in our football language with Mike Leach coming to town and his air raid attack. It was, of course, an air raid attack of a much different kind that led to the transplanted Rose Bowl and really far more significant in American history and certainly Oregon State history. But that is the name, for what it's worth, of what Mike Leach has brought to near perfection at his various stops. It's interesting to read about Mike's plays. He was a rugby player at BYU and hung around Lavelle Edwards and Doug Scoville and Robbie Bosco and saw the BYU pass attack. Mike assimilated some of those concepts as well as when he was at Iowa Wesleyan. At a moment's notice, he'd jump in a car, drive 6 hours to a high school practice to learn more about how to perfect the air raid, spread the field, 5 wides attack. And with Gabe Marks leading the receivers with River Craycraft and Marks, a great quarterback, in Luke Falk, he has his system dialed up to near perfection. So it's going to be up to Oregon State to find a way to somehow turn them over, disrupt Falk, pressure him, hope that he'll turn it over. And the Beaver offense is going to have to find a way to score because the Cougs, with that air raid attack, will score.
And Washington State doesn't turn the ball over much. Obviously, that's a little bit what Mike Parker was talking about. They're second in the conference with just 7 turnovers lost. So it's going to be hard to force turnovers. Do you guys kind of agree with Mike that that's going to be a critical part of the game, forcing turnovers?
Yeah, anytime you can get the ball back and get an extra possession, that's good. But then I think the bigger thing is, can the Beavers do something? You got to be able to score when you get an unexpected possession.
Yeah, he pretty much stole one of my ingredients to victory. So thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Yeah. So
Well, you know you're on the right track if Mike Parker is saying the same thing, right?
No, but I mean, seriously, that's always the most important stat in football. That's one that the Beavers have, throughout the season, kind of struggled, and the times that they've got him, I think Lindsay has a great point. The games that they have gotten takeaways, they haven't really been able to do much with them. And so this is a game where it's going to be critical to slow that offense down, create possessions, play a little bit of keep away, and make sure that Marcus Marion also protects the ball, and so do the running backs.
All right, time now for our standard TV and appliance play breakdown. And Nigel, we are taking a look at a whole series, right, from their game against Oregon.
Well, as this season has worn on, and obviously it's been a little frustrating for Beaver fans, not only are we taking joy in some of our wins versus Cal, but also watching what's going on in Eugene. And so, we figured we'd show a little bit of that. The thing that's unique is when you watch how Washington State operates their offense. They started this game. This is the very first drive. First play, run, goes 22 yards. Then you see the dink and dunk look that's really become their signature in how they move the ball, going to River Craycraft, then goes back to another run on second and short. And that's not really who they've been in the past, Lindsay. They've really they've really gone and just, they'll throw the ball unless it's about a half yard. Then the thing that I liked about this play, and these are all in succession. That was the thing that was really crazy. That's why we just said, show the drive, because then you got a chance to see Luke Falk's mobility as he was able to step up and make a great throw, and there steps up in the pocket, stays in the pocket.
And what is that defense doing wrong to allow them to just kind of, again, shred them?
Watching this defense, I just want to say I'm more and more convinced Oregon State's winning the Civil War.
Look, so on that last play, the part that's tough is, and if you kind of saw it earlier, I wish I kind of mentioned this earlier, but there they kind of decide, hey, they're going to play, it's called a version of picket fence defense, but there's no free safety. They're playing pretty much man-to-man, and when you do that, that's when Washington State will kill you. That's when they go to crossing routes. They'll run picks. So you saw Gabe Marks, who started off at the bottom of the screen, run all the way across, and he's not even running up the field. He's literally just turning and sprinting away from the corner.
That's what you're talking about with the horizontal stuff.
Yeah, and that's the horizontal passing game. You're really working the width of the field, and it is just a nightmare for corners because you're just chasing a guy who knows where he's going. He's probably faster than you to begin with, and you're trying to chase him all the way across the field. A lot of teams will try to turn that over to the linebackers, and I've always found that be for that to be a huge mistake, because if it's tough enough for a corner to chase that guy across the field, linebackers want nothing to do with that. And so,
especially this young linebacking core that Oregon State has.
Exactly. So what you saw there from Oregon was Gabe Marks does that underneath route. Arian Springs doesn't know whether it's going to get turned over to linebackers or not. Doesn't really chase the linebackers, like I said, wanted nothing to do with it. And he is so wide open, and that's what Duck fans are losing their minds over is, what's going on? People running wide open. Well, it's things like that that you think are simple, and they're really not. So, I mean, that's what they do. That's their bread and butter.
So how much, Nigel, like when you watch Washington State, we talk about tempo all the time now. Like how much can Washington State really get going tempo-wise?
They can. That's not necessarily what they do, but they'll mix it in enough to keep you off balance. And they just have so many guys who can make plays. And unlike, and so here's what we were talking about. Arian Springs, you see him jogging across the field. He doesn't know if the linebacker's going to take it. Do I need to cover this thing? Because when we did this in practice, the linebacker took it. Well, in practice, it wasn't one of the best receivers in the conference, and it was some walk-on ninth-string guy who was just jogging across the field. It's just a different animal, and so that's why when I played against this offense, I stayed out of man-free as much as possible, unless I had two safeties over top. We did a lot of zones. We dropped a little bit of 8, and then we did a lot of what I was saying, different defenses where it was like a soft 2 that created indecision, and it worked really well.
All right, still ahead on the show, Lindsay sits down and was chatting with the Oregon State offense this week. We're going to hear how they're preparing for a pretty solid defensive test with Washington State. And up next, Devin Chappelle sitting down with Nigel. We'll hear a little bit more about his journey to Oregon State.
Leidner's pass is broken up, whacked by Devin Chappelle.
Devin Chappelle, for the biggest hit of the game, is blowing up Corey Butler-Bird.
Well, with one of the top passing attacks in the country coming to town this weekend, Beaver safety Devin Chappelle says this is a DB's dream. The Beavers will certainly need him to be as solid as he has been this season. And our DB expert, Nigel Burton, sat down with the senior earlier this week in our Toyota interview of the week to hear a little bit about his road to Oregon State.
Well, again, a great job by Browning. That's just terrific, but the throw isn't. And then Devin Chappelle looked like he was poised for the interception.
You actually started off at Western Oregon. What was the thing that it took for you to say, listen, I'm going to take this leap of faith?
Well, it was kind of always planned. You know, I originally wanted to go to junior college. My mom was terrified of the idea. She didn't really know what junior college was. She didn't know much about that route or anything. It all kind of worked out. I was nervous for a while, but worked out. I'm here.
Butler Bird again. Cut off. Cuts back. Chappelle.
Does it give you a sense of appreciation of everything that you've been through and kind of all the things that are here, having seen kind of the other side of college football?
Oh, yeah. Like, it's night and day just going from Division II to, you know, especially to the Pac-12. And, you know, I hear guys complain, oh, meals and this and that, or, man, we got to take the bus all the way to the airport and da-da-da-da. I'm thinking, man, I remember taking the bus to Canada to play, like, you know, a 13-hour drive. So, you know, I appreciate everything, especially the scholarship. It's amazing.
Do you have an opportunity to maybe share your story with some of the young guys who are maybe going through some tough time?
Yeah, you know, I've talked to some people, especially I try to talk to the walk-ons a lot. You know, I just tell them just keep pushing, just keep every day be in the weight room. You know, you got to work harder because some guys just around every college are complacent. You know, the top recruit, 3-star, 4-star, whatever the case may be. You know, some guys get real complacent, real comfortable. So I always just tell the walk-ons, you know, you got to work even harder.
Devin Chappelle with the biggest hit of the game.
What is it that makes you like, hey, I'm not going to be a tackler, I'm going to be a hitter?
Mama got to eat, man. That's what it comes down to, you know. I only had 2 years at Division I level. Last year, you know, had some injuries, some issues, you know. Didn't get to play as much, make the plays I wanted to, you know. And if this is my last year, I got to make sure I go all out. And I don't plan on it being my last year playing football, but, you know, if it is, I'm going to go all out. And like I said, Mama got to eat, got to take care of her somehow. So I'm going to give them all out there. So.
Love it. Take care of Mom, right?
That's a good kid right there.
Are there a lot of, I mean, when you look at D2, I mean, are there a lot of those guys out there with that kind of caliber talent? Or
I don't know if I would say
hit like him.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd say there's a lot of guys that can make that jump and be successful like him, but there are. And it's what's curious is how a lot of Division II schools recruit. They'll say, hey, look, if you didn't get a Division I offer that you wanted, or maybe you got an FCS offer, but not you think you're a Pac-12 guy, come to our Division II school, play a year or two, and then transfer. Use us kind of like a junior college. And their hope, the coach's hope, is that the kid comes, plays well, but maybe not well enough to make that jump. But for the kids, sometimes it works out really well because as opposed to, especially Oregon and Washington kids, who there is no junior college football here, to go down to California, you'd have to pay out-of-state tuition, maybe not get as, you know, take as good of classes or classes that may not transfer because they're not four-year classes. So they can go to an in-state Division II school, get a little bit better football, get a lot better classes, and pay in-state tuition. So it's a little bit of a win-win for guys like, you know, especially guys like Chappelle.
What do you like about what he's doing this season? Obviously, those big hits kind of take center stage.
No, but that's what it is. He plays with a lot of passion, and I think that, you know, we've had a lot of conversations on Talking Beavers throughout the year, and I think just people who have been around the Oregon State program and certainly fans have been frustrated at the lack of passion. There was a lot of questions about our guys tough. Does anyone really want to be here? He plays like he loves football. That matters right now when you're trying to turn around a program.
Yeah, I mean, when a receiver's watching highlights of him knocking people's heads off, and I mean, that first hit against Minnesota, that was not a little dude. That was a tight end coming across. And so when receivers see that and they feel that, it makes them a little leery when they cross the middle, and that's just not the way the game's played anymore. Now, back when I played, that's how it was. You come across the middle.
That's what Nigel did to people. Nigel was a baller,
Hey, I'm going to tell you, like, just the way that we played, I mean, you could put your helmet under somebody's chin, you didn't get kicked out of anything, and you serve notice early and often that you're not coming through the middle. Well, those rules have all changed. You hit like that, you're thrown out of game. So to see a guy like Devin Chappelle not just tackle people, but hit the way he hits is pretty unique in today's game because they've almost legislated a lot of that out. And so it makes guys really weary about going across the middle if they see number 9.
All right, much more still to come, but right now, James Dockery is getting you ready for the weekend at the OSU Beaver Store.
What's going on, Beaver Nation? October 29th, a very special weekend, Military Appreciation Night, not to mention homecoming. For all those Beaver Nation and Beaver alums, come on down to the OSU Beaver store and get some gear to help support the campus and help support our military veterans. As you can see, we have plenty of options, the camo gear. Going with the homecoming theme, we have a vintage Benny on some camo, one of my personal favorites. Also coming over here, we have the Beaver Salute logo. As you can see, I have it on myself. We have it for women right here. We have it for men. We have it in a V-neck, or a crew neck, or a sweatshirt. Not to mention, we have the Spirit jerseys. Those are very popular here on campus. Also in downtown Portland, I've been seeing girls all over the town wearing these Spirit jerseys. So come on down and get these. Again, we have everything you need here and more at the OSU Beaver store. Fans start here.
One thing we haven't talked about is the Cougars defense, which is actually pretty good. And you were down in Corvallis talking a little bit to these guys. What are they saying about this unit?
Well, so I think it's interesting that, you know, we talk so much about the air raid with Washington State, and the air raid is really popular in college football, particularly in the Big 12, you know, where Texas Tech and Oklahoma just set an NCAA record for combined yards because they each completed, what was it, 854 apiece. So I said to Kevin McGibbon, so what do you think about this notion that air raid teams don't play defense? And he said, well, Washington State didn't get that memo, and he talked about how good they are. You know, they really sell out to stop the run, which is why I think now Oregon State's been able to move the ball 2 weeks on two pretty good fronts in Utah and Washington, but I think that Oregon State's going to have to put the ball in the air to win this game.
No question. I said it on Wednesday against Talking Bees. In order to win this game, the quarterbacks are going to have to do a good job because you're talking about the second best, and they're not just the second best overall run defense. I mean, I think a lot of it I break down in terms of, you know, yards per rush, and they're second in the conference in terms of yards per rush as well. So they do a great job of containing. They fly to the football. Their defensive tackles are two of my favorite in the Pac-12. They are big old monsters who move the pile. They do a lot of movement. I giggle because I see a lot of similarities between what we did at Nevada and what really Ken took from that and took to Washington State. So they do a lot of the move calls. We talked about stemming a few weeks ago and things like that. So it's pretty intriguing, and they're playing solidly.
And they're playing with a lot of confidence right now. Washington State is, you know, the first couple weeks of the season, I think that we were all like, oh my goodness, what's going on with Mike Leach? And now they're rolling. You know, that's going to be big for them.
And I also think, too, the thing about their offense, so the reason people say that is because when you play air raid, one, you're turning the ball over quickly, right? So you go 1, 2, 3, and your defense is right back out there. The other thing is your defense never gets a chance to see with speed any type of run game. Well, when you watch Washington State, one, what are they doing more of now? They're running the football.
Ball.
They also are a zone scheme, but they also run power. So when their defense sees that in practice, when they finally see it in the game, it's not like a foreign language to them. It's like, oh yeah, we've seen that before. So they've kind of done some things that at least have helped their defense in addition to Alex Grinch and personnel.
And this defense, they're also getting a lot better defending the pass. If you look at some of these numbers over the past month or so, and the two losses in particular, they were giving up an average of 357 yards. In those two losses, what did you notice about what their defense was doing that, again, those were the only losses this year? After that, they've been playing pretty well.
Well, I mean, one, it's Eastern Washington, and they throw the ball on everybody and anybody. They don't care who you are, what's on the side of your helmet. The next game was Boise at Boise.
That's
and they
Cooper Kupp, right? He's still there.
Yeah, Cooper Kupp is
one of the best receivers in the country, period.
Anywhere. Yeah, and then Mark Rippon is one. Mark Rippon, that was his uncle. But yeah, is one of the best quarterbacks also in the country. And then you look at like these last 2 weeks. Well, their stats fell off, and it looks like they did a lot better. Well, they're a little bit deceiving because Josh Rosen didn't play in the UCLA game. It was Mike Faithful, their backup. And then the same thing. They've lost two quarterbacks at Arizona State. Manny Wilkins barely played because he couldn't perform. So they actually had to go to a true freshman to play in that game. So they've also fallen on some really good luck in who they're facing, and now they're facing another backup quarterback.
So, I mean, that is the question then. Can they finally get this pass game going against the secondary, this pass defense? Well, they have to, but can they? I mean,
we don't know yet. We haven't seen what Marcus has done enough yet.
Yeah, I'm kind of with Lindsay. He ain't got a choice, so do it or get out the way.
All right, another look at what needs to happen for Oregon State to come out on top. We're going to break it down coming up next. And right now, it's time to take a look at our Papa John's ingredients to victory. And a reminder, if the Beavers score a touchdown in the game, you win the following Tuesday with Touchdown Tuesday. Just use the promo code Beaver7 for 50% off your order at papajohns.com. And Lindsay, our special guest tonight, we'll start with you.
Okay, it's all about the passing game. The Beavers got to put the ball in the air, and they need to limit Luke Falk to, I'm going to say 275. He's throwing for 358 a game right now, so 275. Nigel, you look like you doubt that.
No, I'm good. That was it? That was just that one?
Those two.
Oh, those
they
two.
have to.
Okay.
Oregon State needs to put the ball in the air. I'm not going to set a number for them.
Okay.
They just need to complete over 50% of their passes.
That was like fast. I was like, whoa, we don't go that quickly on this show. You know what? Stop the run. That's the thing I always talk about. We talk about how much they've been running the football at Washington State, 2.5 yards a carry or less. And once they go above that, they're pretty successful. And then win the turnover margin by at least +3. It's going to be a difficult task. They don't turn the ball over. But if Marcus can protect the football and create some opportunities defensively, he's got a chance.
Got to score off those turnovers.
All right, we will wrap things up for you on Talkin' Beavers next week. We'll see you then.